This essay is dedicated to the brave, tough-minded patriots of the past and present who have sounded the alarm against the dangers of government oppression of the individual, and who have risked lives and fortunes to uphold their beliefs that government is but an instrument of the people, its powers forever subordinate to their rights as human beings. In free governments, the rulers are the servants, and the people their superiors and sovereigns. Benjamin Franklin. Why should you listen to this essay? There is no record of history as bloody and battered as that of the power to rule. Countless millions have been marched to their graves during wars fought over the whims of and in the interests of lone individuals. Countless millions more have suffered lives of wretched, inescapable slavery simply because they were born to the wrong classes. Entire empires built by the brilliance and diligence of generations have crumbled in the hands of despotic kings with no more competence or intelligence than the lowliest beggar. For many centuries, man has locked in a social mechanism whereby an elite few arbitrarily wielded power, swinging the masses to and fro with little or no recognition or respect for the divine inspiration alight in us all. During man's trudge through the dystopian dark ages, however, a radical idea emerged, and like a tale of Atlantis, fired imaginations to dream of a world never before known. This simple concept was the first breath of what would become the greatest ideological transformation in history. All human beings, regardless of gender, status, wealth, and religion, are born equally free with the right to the enjoyment of life, liberty, and property, and the right to pursuit of happiness. These natural rights are born with us, exist within us, and cannot be taken from us by any human power without taking our lives. Moreover, these rights formed fundamental law to which all man-made systems of domination or governance were subordinate. This philosophy was a golden ray of light that punctured the gloom of past tyrannies, and it was the substance of groundbreaking recognitions of personal liberties such as the Magna Carta, the writ of habeas corpus, the Petition of Right, the Northwest Ordinance, and others. As history would have it, the American colonists would be the people to carry this ideology to its full fruition. America was opened. Emerson wrote, after the feudal mischief was spent, and so the people made a good start. We began well. No inquisitions here, no kings, no nobles, no dominant church. Here heresy has lost its terrors. Early on, American colonists embraced the philosophy that all men are by nature equally free and independent and have certain inherent rights that transcend human authorities. They also became accustomed to the idea that government only existed by the consent of the people, that the people created the government. and that the people have the right to change the government if it fails to serve admirably. Aware of centuries of abuse by European monarchies and nobles, Americans also knew that without regular, fair procedures of law, there was no liberty. Fresh in their minds were the past horrors of vicious, arbitrary procedures that had been used to victimize religious and political minorities. History had proven that one's home could not be his castle or his property be his own, nor could his right to express his opinion or to worship his God be secure. If he should be searched, arrested, tried, and imprisoned in unpredictable ways with no recourse. Corrupt authorities use bills of attainder to declare political undesirables guilty and sentence them to death without trial by jury. Ex post facto laws were notoriously unfair, for they made criminal any conduct that was not a crime in the past a punishable offense, retroactively increased the penalty for a crime, or changed the rules of evidence to obtain a conviction despite a past acquittal. Visionaries such as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison saw that independence from Britain offered the American people a chance to reclaim rights regarded as supreme laws of nature and set up a government for themselves, created and limited by supreme law that was paramount in all ways to it, yet unalterable by it. I will repeat that. Visionaries such as Thomas Jefferson and James Madison saw that independence from Britain offered the American people a chance to reclaim rights regarded as supreme laws of nature and set up a government for themselves, created and limited by a supreme law that was paramount in all ways to it, and yet unalterable by it. Unalterable by it. Thus was born a new understanding of what a constitution was, cardinal law that would serve as the foundation of government, that would limit all branches of government, and that was unalterable by legislative authority. This differed greatly from the great English Liberty documents, which limited only the crown but not the legislative power in any way, allowing Parliament to legalize any form of tyranny it pleased. Madison made his intention of a new type of constitution clear at the Constitutional Convention, where he declared that the delegates had assembled to frame a compact by which an authority was created, paramount to the parties in making laws for the government of them. James Wilson had earlier established his position that all government ought to be instituted to enable the individuals who compose the Commonwealth to enjoy their natural rights. The first draft of the U.S. Constitution was completed in 1787, but it lacked a vital component, a positive statement of inalienable rights guaranteed to all citizens of the nation. Jefferson stated this powerfully in a letter to John Adams, writing, Let me add that a Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to against every government on earth, general or particular, against. Let me add that a Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to against every government on earth, general or particular, and what no just government should refuse or rest on inference or rest on inference. Despite arguments that a Bill of Rights was necessary, as the Constitution gave government no power to infringe on such rights, despite arguments that a Bill of Rights was unnecessary, as the Constitution gave government no power to infringe on such right, Jefferson worried that without such a declaration, legislative tyranny would be an imminent danger for the decades and centuries to come, and that executive tyranny would follow. After 2 years of controversy and debate, the triumph of individual liberty against government power, one of history's noblest themes, was finally epitomized in the American Bill of Rights. The inviolable laws to be added to the Constitution that guarded against abuse of the great rights of mankind, as Madison puts it. As you will know soon, the Bill of Rights is a triumphant proclamation of sacred truths upon which freedom depends, and a heroic defense of the individual against the majority, subject as it is to demagoguery and deception. By the end of this book, you will not only fully understand and appreciate the liberties the framers guaranteed you, your family, your friends, and society, but you will see how these liberties are the foundation of the lifestyle you currently enjoy. You will also glimpse the misery of life without them, a nightmare that our founders dared to believe they could prevent from ever happening again. Before we move on, however, I want to interject a solemn caveat. The framers tended to be skeptical about the effectiveness of parchment barriers against overbearing majorities. As Madison wrote, he had seen many violations of personal liberties in every state despite their proposed legal protections. So you may wonder, how can a piece of paper come to your aid when it is needed most? The answer is, of course, that no scrap of parchment can float in and save the day. What good, you may wonder, is it for you, a mere individual, to understand and defend something like the Bill of Rights? Well, just as we saw in the noble birth of this nation, enough people of the same mind and willingness to defy tyranny can overcome any opposition and secure their future. Richard Henry Lee and James Madison rightly observed that mere paper barriers may fail, but a Bill of Rights would serve as effective education of the people, because it taught truths of freedom that must refrain that must remain inviolable for there to be any freedom at all. But if the people were not given this education, what if they were ignorant of and indifferent to their natural rights? How would they guard against infringements or even know what constitutes a violation? They would not, and they would be, by definition, willing slaves who would guard their freedom. Who would guard their freedom for them, though? Principled, admirable officials of government who might correctly assume. But what happens when they are gone? Who will replace them at the flagpole and keep it sturdy and true? With no resolute guardians to rise from successive generations, the flag will inevitably topple, and with it, the greatest social evolution in mankind's history. Jefferson stated this clearly: educate and inform the whole mass of the people. They are the only sure reliance for the preservation of our liberty. A cursory review of the chronicles of history shows that every civilization, empire, and state has suffered or died from power accumulating in the wrong hands. Lord Acton famously wrote that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And human nature, unfortunately, is just as predictable today as it was then. God grants liberty only to those who love it and are always ready to guard and defend it. Said Daniel Webster. The founders were possessed of incredible compassion, insight, and forethought, but they are no longer here to protect us. Their legacy is not inscribed papers, but a magnificent vision of a free, prosperous nation whose people, as Patrick Henry boldly declared, value liberty over all, even their lives. That vision must continue, and we are the only ones who can, individual by individual, give it light and strength. True patriotism is belief in the ideals that this nation was founded upon. It is not ignorance of them and unthinking, endless devotion to government. I repeat, true patriotism is belief in the ideals that this nation was founded upon. It is not ignorance of them and unthinking, endless devotion to government. So never forget the founders' message that we, the people, are governed only by our consent. That we create government and that we have the right to change government if it exceeds its limitations. Do not take your freedoms for granted, lest they slowly erode, until, like an ancient parchment, they crumble at the slightest provocation. Become educated, encourage others to follow, and together, despite our divergent political leanings, we can stand united as human beings who recognize and respect each other's right to enjoy life and liberty, to acquire and possess property, and to pursue and obtain happiness and safety. This is why you should listen to this essay, and I will continue in a new video in the near future. Thank you for your attention.